Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You're watching In Deep on the Delta, and today we're going to be talking about spring pre-fishing, and we're going to break down Tule Islands. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the channel, you know that a couple weeks ago I uploaded a similar video and we talked about breaking down rock walls. If you have not watched that video, I highly recommend checking it out because we talk about all of the process and the philosophies that go into spring fishing in general, and those are going to parlay right into what we talk about today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I want to go over the anatomy of a Tule island so that we understand what we're looking at and give you a foundation of how we're going to go about breaking down these Tule islands. So let's set it up, we'll get right into the video. So let's talk about Tule Islands. And number one, there are thousands of them out here on the California Delta. If you're not fishing them, these things are magnets for largemouth bass. So if you're not fishing them, boy, you better get on a stick and fish these things. They not only fish well in the spring, but they hold through the summer and they fish well through the winter also. I'll start off by contradicting myself, saying that all of these Tule Islands are alike, but yet they're all different. And they're pretty easily broken down, but they're tricky. So with that, I think the base that we need to start with is just kind of looking at the anatomy of a Tule island. And again, you should be fishing these year round. For me, all of these Tule islands have primarily 6 physical characteristics. Each island has a point at one end, has a point at the other end. It has a deep bank, and that deep bank is formed because it is exposed to current. And as that current runs into a Tule island, it cuts out a deeper bank. Now conversely, on the other side of that bank, or the other side of the Tule island, the bank that is protected from the major current, that is going to be the shallow side. That's where you're going to find flats. So we have a point, we have a deep side of an island, we have another point, we have a shallow side of the island. The other 2 characteristics we're going to be looking at is the subsurface point that protrudes out from the visible point that we can see on each side of the island. Because remember, all of these islands are constantly shrinking. They're constantly eroding because of the current we have here. But as these erode, off of each point, we're going to have a peninsula, an underwater peninsula that is shallow, that protrudes out from the visible point, and that is going to provide structure. It's going to provide subsurface vegetation, and that's where we actually have to start looking at these islands. So when we pull up to a point on an island, we don't just want to go up within casting distance and start fishing an island point. We want to pull way off the island point and work our way in until we know that island. We'll know how far we have to stop the big motor and get on the trolling motor to fish what is possibly some of the productive water that is offshore from the points. I'm hoping I'm explaining that well. If you are unfamiliar out here with fishing Tule Islands, a lot of times the easiest way to figure out if there's fish on them is go directly to one point of the island, fish that, fish maybe 10-15 yards around the island point, and then directly go to the other island point. If you're catching fish on those island points, then you work your way around the entire island. I feel that most of these fish both enter and exit these islands through points. Generally, there's a chain of islands, and they'll move up and down these islands, and all these fish will come right, starting with that underwater peninsula. They'll pick that up, they'll move right to the point, they'll set up on the point a little bit, and then if they're looking for food or there's other characteristics, maybe spawning area, they'll pull off that point and start moving around around the island. When they're done, you know, with their search for food or whatever, then they might turn around and they'll go right back to that point and they'll go out the same way. Why is it so important to always fish the points? Because that's kind of the entry and the exit, and there's always fish around the point. So keep that in mind. And with that, let's pull up, and we're going to go out to a Tule island, and we're going to talk about how to break down these unbelievable fisheries that we call Tule Islands. I've pulled up on what I would call kind of a flyby island here. It's a very simple island. I want to use this to just kind of go over what we talked about in the introduction. This is a long, narrow island. We could see a point right here. We could see the point down on the other side. This is about 100 yards of island we're talking about here. On this particular side that we can see right now, that's where the current is most prevalent. So this is the deep side of the island. On the other side, which is protected from the current, is the shallow side of the island. And then obviously we have an underwater peninsula coming out from the tip of this island, and we have another underwater peninsula coming out from the far side of the island. Those are the 6 physical characteristics of this island. If I was going to fish this island, I would pull off about where I'm at right now. I'd probably throw some chatterbaits out over the underwater peninsula that comes out probably about 50 to 100 feet. Chatterbaits, maybe crankbaits. Topwaters are always good at these island points. If there's fish on them, you could break them down with slower moving baits, but primarily I would want to be coming in here and fishing them very quickly. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes on a point. You're going down to the other point, you're doing the same thing. If nothing's there, you're going on to the next point. So there's not a whole lot going on with this particular island other than we have the 2 points, a deep side, a shallow side. It's kind of like one of these rock banks that we talked about in the prior video, where it's just straight. There's nothing on it, nothing to really draw you there. We called those flyby banks. This might be a flyby Tule island. What we would like to see on this bank is maybe some secondary points that come out, maybe some inlets in the island, maybe you have some cuts in the island, maybe there's a tree on the island that's fallen down, maybe we can see some wood on this. Things like that would draw me more to this bank other than just the couple of points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and we're going to take a look at an island that's behind us, and this is an island that has just a lot more happening on it. We're going to break that island down, and we'll go step by step. We'll go over everything you need to know to fish this island. Let's do it. But as we see this point here, as we come up to it, we'll stay far offshore. My 2 baits of choice during the springtime with water clarity, I'll say 3 feet, we'll just say 3 feet, would be a spinnerbait or a chatterbait. Water temperatures are still about 52 degrees out here. It's early spring. I would not start off with topwaters, but because this is a big area, as soon as that water temperature gets up to about 58 degrees, I'd be throwing everything from a buzz bait to whopper ploppers, walking baits, and, you know, throw your whole topwater arsenal out here. Primarily, I'm just going to be running around here talking about what the bank looks like and what we should be looking for and how we should be fishing it. One of the things I really like about this particular island is there's a lot of offshore island Tule clumps. We definitely want to throw some baits right into the base of these Tule clumps because this is where the deeper water is going to be, and as these fish are staging, they're going to be on these ledges. So you may throw right up to the base of the Tule, and on the inside of it, it may be a foot or 2 deep, but on the outside of it, it may drop off to 5 or 6 feet. The bigger females will be staging earlier in the season in the deeper water. You may be finding a lot of males in tight, but the bigger fish will be out in a little deeper water. Now, as you come up to an area like this that's protected, there is lots of spawning ground. As the spring progresses, the first fish that are going to be in these shallow areas are the males. Now, if I fish in here and I don't catch anything, one of the things I like to do is come into an area like this and I'll be curious. We talked about being curious, and I want to look around and I want to see the depth that's in here, and I want to see the structure of the bottom. And what I'm seeing right now is there's some vegetation out here, but it looks like hard bottom out in here. So this is good spawning area. It's protected from the wind, it's protected from the current. Maybe in a week or so, I start picking up a lot of bucks or males in here. I'm going to really keep a close eye on this place, because a week or so after that, the females may be in here. And you have to pick apart every one of these little inlets in here. What you'll find, if there's 6 or 8 of these little divots in any given island, there could be 1 or 2 of them that hold all the fish. Let's take a look at this Tule clump out here. You might want to start on the outside, fishing the deep ledge. Again, worms, jigs, you know, you throw a lot of things out there. Then move in, you want to fish around the Tule clumps. And in this situation, again, think of it, if you're a fish, you're coming down the point, you're going along this deeper ledge, it's maybe 6 or 8 feet off the ledge. You hit this Tule point, you come into the Tule point, you're going to swim right down along these. You're going to look in here. If you're a big female, you see, oh, I got deep water here, that's my sanctuary. I've got some bucks in here that are digging spawning beds. I've got protected water. This is an area that I'm going to hold. And you know, all of the females and all of the males don't come in and spawn at the same time. So you could have big females that are sitting out in this area here where I just cast that are holding there. You may have another big female that's already, you know, on her eggs in there. You're always going to have a lot of small bucks on the inside. That's another thing that you want to be aware of. As you start fishing this in spring, you may be thinking to yourself, geez, I'm seeing tournament guys and they're catching 5, 6, 7, 8 pounders. All I'm doing is catching bucks. If you're a weekend angler, if you are around the males, don't worry. Stay in that area as long as you have good spawning area. There's a lot of males, the females will follow them, and you will get bigger fish as the season progresses. Shallow flats in here, drop off at the edges of the Tules. All this is great water to explore. I may have 4 or 5 different baits. I've got a very lightly weighted, I call this a jig, but it's a bronco bug. I've got this on one rod. I've got a weightless worm on another rod, because in here it's only going to be 2 or 3 feet deep. You don't need any weight. I've got a rod, let's see, back here that I don't have anything on now, but you can see it's a spinning rod, and it's all set up for a wacky rig. Here I've got a Nico rig worm. I might throw this right at the base of Tule's with a very light weight on it. As I throw up in front of us, I may have to make a super long cast, and that's when I'm going to use that 5-inch unweighted Cinco. I can make a long cast, it's going to land softly, and I'll be able to work it through all the vegetation. As I get out in some of the deeper areas out here, that's when I'll throw that bronco bug. Another bait that I like to use in here is the old Allen Fong stand by the brush hog. They work great out here, just little T-rig type things. As these fish come in, and especially when that water temperature gets up to about 55, 58 degrees, these are great places to throw small poppers in the morning or in the evening. You can throw them in the shallow water, especially at high tide, and you can get some really big fish on topwater fish in here. So this is this whole bank here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around to that other point. We'll show you the point. Then we're going to go to the flat side of the island. All right, I just pulled up about 100 yards from where we were, and this is the other island point that we have on that same island. And I'm going to start basically just working around this island. And what I have on now is a spinner bait. If I'm trying to fish this fast, I'm just covering water. I'm seeing if I could get bit, but what I want to do is kind of take you guys on a little trip around the point of this island. We'll talk about how we fish the point and go around and get around to the other side of this island and start fishing the shallow side of the island. And I'll just say that right now I'm throwing my spinnerbait into about 2 feet of water. The boat is right on the drop-off. If I was to throw straight in front of the boat, I'd be in 8 feet of water, and that's where the drop-off is. If I'm to throw into the Tules, it's probably 2 to 3 feet of water. Now, as we come up to the point, if we are moving around the island, I'll pull up right in tight, and I'll probably, let's fish this the way that I would fish it normally. I'll fish it fast, but I'll fish the baits that I would normally fish. I would pull in here, I'd be quiet, and I'd make some fairly long cast, and I want to fish in this protected water to see if there's a big fish holding in here. And I want to stay away from my target zones as far as I can. I want to fish these with very light baits, and I want to fish it very slowly. Drop them right in, see if there's something in there, really kind of soak them, fish them nice and slow. Maybe take one other cast, right out to here, right in next to the Tules, let it drop down. And again, I'm fishing super fast here. But as I fish this little inlet and I don't get anything, I'm thinking, well, there's nothing in here. But remember, we're on the island point and there is an underwater peninsula out here. So what I can do after I've hit this area in here, I can take a spinnerbait or a chatterbait and I can throw it offshore, and I'll go ahead and I'll try to hit everything out from this point. And I'll do it with faster moving baits. And what I'll tend to do is go out and I'll keep throwing until I find the deeper water. And if I have to go 20 or 30 yards off of this point until it drops off, that's where I'll fish. Another thing that you might want to look at when you're fishing these areas is shaded Tules, just like we talked about in that first video. As summer approaches, shade becomes more and more important for these fish. So possibly this time of the year, you don't want to be fishing in the shade. You want to be fishing in sunlight penetration that's helping to heat up the water. As you get farther into the summer, you may want to start fishing the shaded banks more, because the fish may be looking for a little cooler water. So I'm up on this point right now, and this is kind of a secondary point off of the island. And you know, we talked about all of these islands being magnets, but on a big island like this that may be 400 or 500 yards long, there are going to be several hot spots or magnets within the island that you're going to want to really kind of slow down and fish a little bit and break them apart. So if you look ahead of us about 100 yards there, that's the point that we started on. So we've kind of went all around this island, and I know I've kind of jumped around. I'm trying to, you know, keep in the proper light exposure and things, but hopefully I've given you guys a lot of food for thought on what to look for and some of the baits that you can use. You don't have to use the baits that I'm talking about. If you have confidence baits, use your confidence baits out here, but you definitely want to have some bottom bouncing baits, some reaction baits, some topwater baits. Everything that you see out here is a clue, and from water temperatures to how the current is hitting the bank, how the wind hits the bank, where the shade is going to be, where the sun's going to be. All of this we've been talking about in the last few videos that I've done, and it has to be put together as a full package in order to get the most out of it. And that's what it's all about. When you're out here, it doesn't happen in one day. You may fish an island 10 times, and on the 10th time, you may find that honey hole out here. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching. And if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Until then, get out here, have some fun. See you guys on the river. Good luck.